How's everybody doing? It's 2:30. This is the dead hour. So maybe we could turn the lights back on.
It's the date hour.
Yeah. It's a tough time to do a presentation. First, let's begin at the beginning here. I have turned a grandfather this year. There's quite a bit of data in that picture. Let's see if you can figure out some of it. Obviously, she's 8 months old there. That was last week. She likes to wear things in her hair. Any other data you can gather from that picture? She's not starving. Okay? See the crease halfway down the forearm? She's very, very healthy. And all you got to do is look at me and look at her and realize she must have a beautiful grandmother, because it's... Thanks, Samir, for the invitation to speak. This is fun. It's not often that we get a room full of students. Mona and I work for a company, I'll describe it here in a minute, but we give software presentations to publishers. So it's fun to have a room full of students here. You will all relate very well to this story. So our daughter is graduating from college next month, in a few weeks. She was home for the summer last summer, did not have a car, but was working some of the time. And so a typical conversation on a Wednesday would be, Dad, can I borrow your car tomorrow night? I would say, well, what time? And she would say, well, I don't know. I'd say, well, I need data. I need information in order to make a well-informed decision. She said, well, I said, what are you doing and what time are you going to go? She said, well, we're not doing anything till 9. I go, oh, fine. I'll be long home by then. It was plenty of data for me to be able to make a decision. So data, we use it all the time to make decisions. It's wonderful. I love data. It's information. It does what information should do. It informs. And when we've got accurate data, we can make really well-informed decisions. So, Farm Journal used to be our client back in the 80s, back before the internet, almost back before software. So helping them to get those 20,000 editions out every month was a lot of fun. A lot of people in this room may have a lot of data. You may have a big data warehouse. You may have a business intelligence solution. And sometimes the business people sit back and go, what are we supposed to do with it? You know, what's the action? You've got data teams of people who may not necessarily be business people. They may have come up with a fantastic data warehouse and a business intelligence tool, but the business people look at it and go, okay, what do we do? How can it help the business to improve that data? How can that data help us to increase our audience? How can we take the data and do a better job of engaging our customers? Great questions. So let me take a step back for a second and tell you who we are. So AdvantageCS, we're on the subscription side of the revenue equation, so we don't really have anything to do with advertising. We live in the subscription world. And we supply subscription and full commerce kind of platform to publishers, membership organizations, and some service companies who use that sort of software. So this is a kind of a picture of the functionality that we cover. It's a customer-centric system, lots of subscription management. We have an e-commerce platform. People sell products and books and continuity series and conferences and events, and we handle payments and orders and memberships and donations, all the stuff you see there, okay? So it's a pretty broad software platform. And we have been serving the global publishing needs of publishers for almost 40 years. We'll be 40 years next year, which means we've had to keep up with technology very, very quickly. You can't be still using 40-year-old technology if you're a technology company. So our publishing clients and membership organization clients kind of fall into 3 categories. This is a smattering of who our clients are. All right, this is not a full list. So consumer special interest, you will notice that many of these are international. We have a lot of clients over in Europe. We also serve the scholarly world, and some of these are membership organizations like the American Medical Association and the Institution of Engineering and Technology and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, who published the magazine Science. All right? And then B2B publishers. Some of these names are up as sponsors today. So we all live in a kind of a similar world. So B2B, we've got some information companies owned by Hearst And Inform is a great big company in the UK. It's a newsletter publisher, and they just bought a big publisher in the US called Penton. So this is kind of just to set the stage for you. Now, like I said, a lot of these are in Europe. About 35% of our clients are in Europe now. 15 years ago, 0% of our clients were in Europe. So that's been a big area of growth for us. So what I wanted to do was, let's go to Europe and let's talk about not magazines, but newspapers. Interesting that that question came up this morning. Because it's kind of a lateral step from magazines, but it's an industry that's very similar. Marketing is very similar. It's subscription-based, it's advertising-based, but we can maybe gain some insights from newspaper publishers. So I'm going to tell some stories about our clients and companies where our clients have worked and various things like that. So let's take that lateral step. So back to data for a minute, okay? So many of us in this room, like I said, probably have data warehouses, which might feed business intelligence tools. And to build these kinds of things takes, Dennis, some real technical know-how, right? You got to know what you're doing. If you didn't get that from the last presentation, go talk to Dennis later. It takes some real technical know-how. The problem can be that these are strictly IT projects, and when the project is over, the business people look at it and go, okay, now what? Pretty graphs, but how do we action that data? Which I'm glad you mentioned it. So one European newspaper publisher took their business people and inserted them into the data teams. Said, you two got to work together. You understand the business, the data people understand the data. You got to work side by side and figure out what on earth we can do with this data to affect the business in a positive way. The other thing they did was they took data people and they stuck them into business teams. So the business meetings about, okay, what do we do with the price next year, and what do we do with the renewal series? The data people would be there representing the data and the technical tools that will help to support the business as it does new things. Okay, so nothing against techie nerds. I love techie nerds. We've got a building full of them. Wonderful people, got to have them, but you got to mix them with the data, with the business people. The next thing this publisher did was they looked at their KPIs, and their KPIs were their biggest. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
I'm guessing half the people in the room don't know what a KPI is. Could you?
Key performance indicator, so data points that you keep an eye on to drive the business. Okay, so this newspaper company was looking at one specific KPI to drive the business because they thought this was what it was all about. And it was because it was an audited publication, the auditors are after how many issues go out the door. So that was their KPI. How many issues are going out the door? The more issues, the better, right? That means we're sending a lot of issues out the door. We must be making some good money. Well, turned out that wasn't quite the case. So that KPI didn't really have a direct relationship or correlation to the satisfaction of the readers. The readers might be getting a lot of issues, but they may not be very happy with what they were getting. So they were churning. They were going through a lot of, people would drop off, they would cancel, they wouldn't renew, and they're like, we're sending all these issues out the door. The auditor's happy, the auditor for the sake of the advertisers was very happy, but why is there so much churn? Why aren't we retaining these customers? So it's because the KPIs they were using were not driving value. So let's I'll just give you this example. So for example, because it's a newspaper, you could subscribe to just the Saturday edition. This particular newspaper did not have a Sunday edition. It was a newspaper in the Netherlands, only on Saturday, or the rest of the week. You could get Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. You could get Thursday through Saturday. You could get Saturday only. You could get Monday only. Many combinations. Well, the people who were only getting Saturday, the publisher thought, well, we need to get more issues out the door to make the auditors happy. So for the Saturday only people, let's go ahead and send them Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Surely they'll appreciate the free issues. Well, it turned out the customers didn't appreciate the 3 issues because they didn't have time to read them. The reason they had signed up for Saturday only is because they only had time to read the dang paper on Saturday. The rest of the week they were busy working. So they were getting this newspaper on Thursday, which they had to pitch in the trash, and on Friday, which they had to pitch in the trash. And the customers were frustrated because they were like, this is such a waste. Why can't I just have what I want? So they started to turn this thing around a little bit. And they said, let's come up with some new KPIs that are based on relationships with our customers. The relationship with our customer, we think, might be better at driving value. So they kind of threw the old KPI out the window, which was a little scary because the auditors were saying, well, wait, you got to keep these issues up in order to keep your advertising value up. So they started this throughout the old KPIs, and this really started to improve their relationships with their customers, and they did some really cool stuff. I was very pleased to hear Stephen say last night that he reads every email message from anybody who sends him one. Any message or Twitter message or email or whatever. He reads them all. That makes for excellent relationships. Because when a customer is unhappy and they give you the gift of telling you why they're unhappy, you're given the opportunity to improve it. That's a gift. A complaining customer is the best thing for your business. Because if they don't complain to you, they're complaining to their next door neighbor, they're complaining at their dinner parties, they're complaining to their wife. They're complaining that you're just not hearing about it, and you just complacently think that everything is fine. So you've got to hear from your customers when they're upset. So start listening to your customers. These people did some really amazing things. You've got to know about the 260,000 or 8 billion or however many relationships you have, even if it's only 1,500. That's where your data comes from. That's what's going to drive better engagement with your audience, is improving those individual relationships. We are people, and the relationships between us have to be good, or I'm going to be an unhappy customer. So they began to rethink through this, and believe it or not, they didn't need the big data toys. Sorry, Dennis, but for improving customer relationships, they already had all the data they needed from their systems. Okay? So they could start to ask questions like, which promotions and products drive these good relationships? Which are bad for relationships, like sending out for 2 free issues turned out to be a bad idea. The first extra X million dollars to your bottom line is probably already hidden in the data that you've already got. That's something to think about. It's what we call low-hanging fruit. So let's talk about specifics for a minute. So we've got lots and lots of data about subscribers and readers and your audience, and you want to take care of them, right? So let's just look at the kind of information that is tracked by, I just chose one of our customers, didn't ask their permission, so I won't tell you who they are, but this is the kind of stuff they are tracking on their subscribers. They know that they subscribe to today's grandparent, name is made up because I'm a grandparent. First activity in 1992, they previously purchased a book. They know when you were born, they know that you have a visa, this person is a teacher, they live in Illinois, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You may be asking a lot of questions, and I know Farm Journal does, of your subscribers. How many acres of corn? How many head of cattle? Similar kind of thing here. You can ask all these questions of your customers over time. Just go ask them one question every time they come to the website and do something, change their address, ask them one question. And you're collecting this data, and after a while, you know a lot about that customer. Okay? So you've got it at your fingertips, and you've got the power to start making business decisions based on that data. So let's do an example here. Price elasticity. So this company, this newspaper company over in Europe, they would sit around and talk about the renewal rates. You know, they had a bunch of editors in a room, and okay, well, we should raise it $4.95 a year. And, no, that's too high, we're gonna lose customers. It was all just a big meeting, and it was all based on gut feel, not based on data. Well, they decided, as part of this whole new KPIs and new focus on the relationship with the customers, let's do this based on data. Let's do some actual testing. So, you know, at the extreme, you're trying to make money. So at the extreme, you could say, well, if we can just find one customer to pay all the revenue we need, that's all we need. But that kind of defeats the purpose of a newspaper, which has a mission to like better society. So there's that sweet spot, right, of the right number of readers, the right revenue. Sometimes when you lower your price, sorry, Linda, she won't like this, you can actually increase by so many more customers that you might make more money, and then you've got a lot more readers, better engagement. Or if you increase your price, you might lose 50% of your customers if you increase it too much. So there's that sort of sweet spot that you got to find. but you can't find it by asking the customers. They don't know how they would react. If we increase the price $4.95 a year, would you drop your subscription? Well, it's easy for them to say, oh, no, I'm very loyal. And then when the day comes, they go, oh, $4.95, that's a lot. So the only way to really test it is to really test it. You do an A/B split, and a control group gets the new price, and the rest of the people don't get the new price, and you watch and see, does this group cancel more than this group? How's the retention? You've got to test it on real people, and that's what these people did. And they found out that they needed to lower their price ever so slightly, and subscriptions took off. Lots more revenue. Really interesting stuff. And that's because customers, the value they attach to your product is different than you might think. It could be that just a little increase is going to be fine, nobody will drop off. It could be that a little decrease might really help you out. Just one example of taking data and using it in a really good way. So let's talk about that customer relationship. So here's a quote from one of the guys that told the story. When we determined that building relationships was the main purpose of our work. Interesting, right? Building relationships is the main purpose of our work. It didn't take long before improved customer experience became a top priority for everybody across the company. So finance, sales, service, production, and accounting people began to go and interview their customers at their homes. How's that for radical? Hi, Mr. Customer, can I come and see you tonight? And this guy describes going into the kitchen of this subscriber who they'd had for 25 years, very loyal subscriber who had canceled. So he calls him up and says, I'd like to come and see you. Goes to his house in Amsterdam, visits him, sits down, has a cup of tea, and the guy says, look, I've been your subscriber for 25 years, and I've never received anything from you except the newspaper. Never a thank you, never a thanks for being loyal, nothing. All I ever get is the newspaper, and then once a year, I get my renewal notice, and this year, you increased the price, and I went on the internet, and I looked, and you care more about new subscribers than you do about me. I'm your loyal subscriber, and the new subscribers get it for much less than I'm paying, and that makes me mad. That guy was like, whoa, this is a good conversation. I'm learning all kinds of stuff here. So they did that. People would go and interview the subscribers. This is really great relationship building stuff. So the effects of this new sort of focus on customer relationships, improve relationships with clients, obviously, but also across the company, the silos began to fall. Everybody's kind of on the same page. Hey, we're trying to serve our customers, engage our audience, increase our audience, make them happier. Everybody was on the same page. It was like a spark of energy for the company. Customer experience is a shared belief, and once everybody is sharing that belief, everybody's on the same page. Most coworkers will be open to doing things for the customer because in the end, the customer is paying your paycheck, right? Another publisher did a pilot program to call every new subscriber. Takes some work, right? It's quite a project. So they want to try to engage them with the digital products. They'd subscribe to the print. You want to get them engaged with the digital. Have you signed in? Do you have your password? Have you looked at anything? Kind of help them over maybe a hurdle of touching the digital content. And also checking that the delivery of the newspaper was, it's coming on time, no problems with, the postal service or anything. And if they're, happy with the product they chose. I'm not a big believer in calling people who just bought something and making sure they're happy. It's a little bit like the waiter who comes after they've served your food about a minute and a half ago, and you're still putting your napkin on your lap, and they say, is everything okay? I'm like, it would be if you just wouldn't ask, But this thing worked. They knew, just based on the numbers, the time it was going to spend, people were going to spend calling these new subscribers, that they would need a 2.6% decline in cancels, because this is they were fighting, cancels. People would subscribe, and 3 months later, they'd canceled. So they're trying to figure out why. So they knew they needed to decline those cancels by 2.6% in order to earn back the cost of all these calls, okay? So as it turned out, the calls resulted in a 3.8% decline in cancels, which meant the whole business case was positive. So they figured if we just do this as a standard operating procedure, we call every subscriber to make sure they're new subscribers, make sure they're happy, they would have 1,500 more relationships, 50,000 more euros on the bottom line, an improved customer experience, and all at the same time. That's great stuff to do with data. Great stuff. And it's data around this relationship. Now, one of the problems with relationships is the C-suite, the management team might say, this is really touchy-feely soft stuff. I need hard data. Well, there's some really great hard data around this. It does not have to be touchy-feely. How about a handwritten note from the customer service rep who just hung up with a customer who reported a problem? Not just, okay, we'll take care of it, yeah, thanks for calling, goodbye, then a handwritten note. So they were doing things like a customer would call and say, I'm sorry I have to cancel, but I just lost my job. So then the customer service rep after the call would write a handwritten note, so sorry to hear about your job loss, here's a free issue. That's good service. Thank you so much they were starting to get fan mail. Thank you so much for the get well card. So sweet of you to send me this. Amazing service. That's the kind of stuff your customer service people want to hear, okay? So all of this helped improve customer service and decrease churn. But there's two things you can't forget before you get going in projects like these. One is you still better have a good product. Because if you don't have a good product going out the door, it doesn't matter what you say to your customer, they're not going to buy it. We know this. We're in the software business. Every release of our software every month has to be top quality, or we hear about it, trust goes down, clients start, wandering around looking for something else to do. In case you all don't know, when he stands up, that's a 3-minute warning, okay? I was instructed earlier, which is good because I'm just about there. And the other is the fundamentals. So like if delivery isn't working, you better get that solved before you start sending a get well card because they really want the delivery, okay? So keep your feet in the shoes of your customer, but make sure these two things are happening. Okay, very quickly, other revenue sources that we've seen success at newspaper companies. They are, of course, experimenting with membership models. We've all heard of the Guardian magazine in the UK, the Guardian newspaper in the UK. They've been on a membership thing. You can donate, and it's like being part of the mission. It's a great concept, and they're making all kinds of money doing it. Others in this room have started memberships. We've got a client who's starting a membership program. They are converting all of their subscribers to members without telling them until after the fact. They're saying, you are now a member of our brand, because they think it's going to help with like community and retention, and we'll see. We'll watch the data. Podcasts. This has been really successful for one of the newspaper publishers over in Europe. What they found is that the audience is younger, okay? About 70% of them are subscribing. 80 to 85% of the people who begin a podcast finish it. They listen to the whole thing. That's a big number. In just 1 week, listeners spent 25,000 hours listening. That's not as much as it takes to read. I mean, the reading during a normal day is about 15,000 hours because so many people get the newspaper. But podcasts are really a money-making thing. Okay, last one, I promise. Events. One of the newspapers over in Europe, what they did was a rematch of a World Cup game where their country's team was up against Brazil, and I didn't check, I should have, shame on me, back in the 90s. And they had lost to Brazil, as everyone does, and so they had a rematch. They sponsored a rematch sometime in the last couple of years. It was enormously successful. Great brand building for them, lots of excitement. People who were subscribers to the newspaper got a discount, okay? There's that gift. You've given me something because I'm loyal. And get this, massively successful with an 85.7 return on investment. Whew, makes you want to do one of those every year. We have another client, Mother Earth News. So any of the sustainable living people out there, Mother Earth News is our client, been running on our software for a long time. They have found that people will pay a lot of money to go to an all-day workshop to learn how to do something. So they have things like triangle loom weaving, all-day seminar. Not sure how much I would pay for that, but people pay a lot. Another one called Hemp 101. Okay? Whole hog butchery. I mean, this is real stuff, and they really make a lot of money at it. So events, think about it, get creative. What can you do that's going to bring people in? They do them all over the country. It's on a Saturday, and people spend the day there, and it's very, very successful. Okay? Thank you.